this is a memorial to the first Byrons that lived here, that lived at Newstead, Sir John Byron. So it was him that had the house given to him by Henry VIII in the 16th century. So he's the reason really that Lord Byron the poet came to live here.
Why they give this building to him?
Well, the building was a religious house. It was a priory. And Henry VIII decided to close down all the religious houses in the country. And Sir John Byron worked for Henry VIII as a commissioner. So he was in Henry VIII's favour, and that's why he gave it to him. So he sold it to him.
So that's why his name is Abbey, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. Should we go through?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll go up these steps this way if you wanted. But of course, it's decorated for Christmas. So we're seeing a lot of Christmas decorations and a lot of music. This is him. This is Lord Byron.
This one.
So we've made sure that's the first image you see when you walk in.
Yeah.
For any visitors that come in. Just doing a bit of filming.
That's all right. Carry on.
That's okay. That's a suit of armour. That's a replica of one that was here in the Victorian period when the Webb family were living here. This is the great hall where Lord Byron kept his animals. Lord Byron had lots of animals, lots of dogs.
This one's hall of deer.
Yeah, so deer, giant elk, things all hunted after Lord Byron's time. Lord Byron kept his animals here. He had a bear as well. So this is where we kept them. This is all part of the fairy tale Christmas displays. So this is the Snow Queen. So what we've got is all the displays are based on Victorian fairy tales.
So related to the time of
What is that?
Where's the time after
By the
Byron?
door. Is it Mouse's tail trailing on the floor?
And what's that he's got?
Why
Because
is it
He's
designed
the
like this?
key, and he's left a note.
Well, this is the reason it's designed like this is because it's a dramatisation of the story, which was written in the Victorian period. And we know that the family that lived here after Lord Byron read all these stories, so we've recreated them for Christmas.
So it's a mirror, broken mirror.
Yeah, it's just smashing the mirror. That's the story, really. The Snow Queen is smashing the mirror, and the mouse has escaped with the key through the entire house. So you can see the mouse
Something has happened in here.
going into the.
Let's explore some more.
Yeah, just on the floor here.
Geraldine, watch out.
The mouse has then escaped with a key through the floorboards.
Covered in broken glass. Mrs. Peters got a shot in the finger. Something really strange is happening with her.
See?
The silver splinter has turned her eyes and transformed
Little
into
tear.
little Maris.
A snow queen, I think, from tales of old.
So that's the story throughout the house for Christmas. Chasing the mouse.
How strange.
Next.
Should we go through?
Yeah.
Yeah? If we go through this way.
The signs one hope so the time not stop.
This is the East Gallery, so these are all paintings of Newstead in the past. These were painted by Byron's ancestors. So Lord Byron, as we know him, is the sixth Lord Byron. He was the sixth man to hold that title. These were painted by the fourth.
Fourth.
Yeah.
So the fourth is a painter.
Yes. Yeah, he was an artist. He was a great musician as well. He was very-
Dog, horse.
Yeah. That's
Hunting.
They're hunting. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but he was a great painter, and they're really valuable to us because it means that we have a record of the house. You know.
Yeah. And pond, small
Yeah.
pond.
Yeah. So you can probably tell how far back that view is from. So that's right far back where beyond where the lake is now, where the waterfall is. Yeah.
What about this painting? The same person?
Yeah, yeah. So they're obviously paintings of his horses, but the reason it's interesting to us is because Newstead's in the background. So they're the only records
this
we
is
have.
the
That's Newstead Abbey.
Newstead Abbey. This point. And why the tail of the horse is too short?
Well, the reason that's a good point. That's a good point.
See, too short. Why the
I think
cutting?
they'd been trimmed because they were racing horses, and that's what he wanted the paintings of. He wanted paintings of his horses, basically, and it was almost incidental that the house was in the background. But it's interesting to us because they're the only records of the house in that time that we have. So it helps us trace the history of the house because it's changed with every generation, really.
Yeah. So we don't know why they cut the tail.
No, we don't. No, I'd be interested to know actually.
Because it's different from that of Chinese horse. The Chinese never cut it.
Really?
Yeah, never cut the tail. It's a beautiful part.
Yeah, it is.
Back here.
It is. It's interesting. I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
I'm too busy looking at the house.
Oh, yeah, for example, house. What about this chair?
These chairs were here again after Byron was here, so they belong to the Red family. So all the furniture that you'll see here belong to the residents of the house. This cabinet was here when Byron was here, so it's a drinks cabinet.
Could you describe this picture, this carving?
Yeah, the carving it comes from Italy. The carving, and the idea was it was meant to display images from classical stories, really. So classical Italian, but also Greek stories. But it's all meant to be decorative, basically. It's fancy furniture for your house.
The bird with two heads.
Yeah.
And what's the meaning of this?
I don't know, really. I don't know what the stories behind them are. I'm not sure Byron would have known.
But it's look beautiful.
It is beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So also the painting from the falls.
Yeah. These are all later paintings. So these are from the 1940s.
1940s.
Yeah. So they're far more recent. So these are paintings in Newstead when it was already a museum. They're by Arthur Spooner, who was he was a great artist in
Different
Nottingham.
angle.
Yeah, so that's really close to where we've just been outside, to where the west front of the church is.
Is this swan or
Yeah,
geese?
they're swans.
Swans.
There might be some geese further round.
And it's a little boy.
Yeah. Arthur Spooner was very good at that, putting figures and images in his paintings.
Yeah.
He's done a really great painting of Goose Fair in Nottingham as well.
Yeah, Wallace was a saying. Yeah, she was.
About this one.
These are plans of Newstead when it was improved after Lord Byron's time. So the man who bought Newstead from Lord Byron was Thomas Wildman, who had lots of money. He inherited lots of money from plantations that his parents owned, sugar plantations in Jamaica, and he planned a lot of the improvements. So, for example, the wing that we were just in, in the cafe, that was all built after Lord Byron was here by Thomas Wildman, and they're the plans of it.
What's the date?
These are about 1840.
1840. And along with
Yeah,
What's it?
this is around. This is later than Byron's time as well. This is about Victorian times, probably about 1860 now.
what it's used for?
It's just a storage chest.
Storage.
Yeah, store linen and tablecloths and things like that. This is where we display most of the things
Yeah.
that relate to Lord Byron.
There.
That's Mary Choworth, Byron's cousin.
Cousin.
A lot of people say she was his first love because he fell in love with her when they were both 14. But she didn't want to have anything to do with him. rejected him, which she later regretted. But she married John Musters, who lived at Annesley Hall, which is about 4 miles from here.
Can cousin fall in love at that time?
Yes, yes. That was common, especially for the aristocracy at that time. And there was a history of that in Byron's family.
What is this about this book?
So, yeah, these are examples of the earliest objects that relate to him, really. So this is the first known image of him when he was 7.
Byron was 7.
Yeah. He had we spoke earlier about him having that club foot, so he was disabled.
Which foot?
It was his left foot, because you can see in that image,
Yeah.
they've painted a bush to hide it.
Oh, yeah.
So all the images of him that show his body, his foot is always obscured or covered in some ways like that.
So he was born to be.
Yeah, he was born. It was a malformed foot, was how they termed it at the time.
What about this book?
This is a book that belonged to Thomas Wildman, who bought Newstead from Lord Byron, and it contained his copy of Fugitive Pieces, which was one of Byron's first books that he printed in Newark. And we've got a lot of the things that we display here are books, as you can imagine.
Is
for
there
a
something
writer.
special you can introduce to us?
Yeah, I mean, I really like this because it's his signature.
Which part?
If you can see within the frame, there's some writing inside it on some wood, and that was from a wooden panel from a church in Harrow where he went to school. So that's basically graffiti. That's Byron graffiti in church. He never paid attention in church.
And these shoes.
They're some shoe molds, so they were given to the museum from his cobblers. So they made his shoes, but of course because of his disability, he had to have his shoes adapted for his foot.
Yeah. It's Byron as well.
This is John Hanson. He
John
was his,
Hanson.
yeah. So he's his. John Jackson. He was his trainer. He was a boxing trainer. Byron loved boxing. And they're Byron's gloves, boxing gloves.
So the man disabled can boxing.
Yeah. He was a great sportsman. He was a great swimmer, as well. He swam the length of the Grand Canal in Venice when he lived there. So he was in the water for 4 hours, dodging gondolas,
Yeah.
racing friends. So yeah, I think he always wanted to exaggerate his own prowess in that sense, really.
This is it for dogs.
Yeah, that's for his dog, Bosun. In fact, I'll show you a portrait of Bosun later up.
What is this?
Later on.
It's for boxing.
That's for fencing.
Fencing. Yes.
Yeah.
She likes fencing. He likes fencing and boxing,
Yeah. And swimming.
swimming.
They were his main. They were the sports he played mostly, and badminton.
It's a book, poetry.
Yeah. So because this room's chronological, it kind of goes through. And in this period, this is when he's starting to write more, and he travelled across the Mediterranean. He travelled across Greece and Portugal and Turkey. So these books are from Albania.
This one.
Yeah. And it was dangerous for any Englishman to travel across Europe at that time because Europe was at war. Napoleon was taking the French through Europe, so he went looking for danger, basically. This is the book that made him most famous, Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. So when that was published, it sold out in 3 days, and he was instantly a celebrity at that point.
You can see from this angle he's handsome.
Yes, yeah. There's a better portrait of him up here, actually.
Wow, a lot of books here.
Yeah.
Christmas
A
tree.
book Christmas tree, of course.
Yeah.
And this is the library, so we thought that's the best place to put it. But yeah, there's his portrait here.
This one.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So that's him at about the age of 25.
And what's the other two?
What's that, sorry?
It's
Oh, the other two?
Yeah.
Well, that's little Sir John Byron, so he was the second Byron to live here. So that's him in 1599. That's the oldest known portrait of any Byron. And as I say, he was the second to live here. He's aged 79 there, which was an age that not very many people reached in that age at that time.
longevity.
Yeah, yeah. And this is Byron's mother, Catherine Gordon Byron.
Mm.
They didn't get on. So I quite like the fact that we've displayed these and he's turned away from her. That was the intention, really. He wants to be next to her but not looking at her.
Yeah.
But she lived here with him. And she died here, actually. She died at Newstead while he was away travelling in Albania.
Someone said her character temper is very bad.
Yes. Yeah. She was very short-tempered. As was he, actually, when he wanted. She was from the far north of Scotland. She was from Abbey, which is a lot different to here. A lot different, very remote.
So I guess Byron experiments a hard time when he was in childhood time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was difficult. He didn't know his father. And his father died abroad. So it was his mother that brought him up, really. And they didn't get on, as you say. So it was unique. It was unique.
Mm.
This, hopefully it's working. If you want to step on if you step on it where the daisy rings are.
Can I
Yeah.
step on it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So soft.
Yeah, this is part of the trail for the mice. So this is part of the Christmas trail. It's not normally here.
Oh, yeah, it's very soft.
Yeah.
What are these people?
Yeah, that's the fairy house that he's gone through. So this is like a dramatic retelling of all the stuff, the fairy tales that were read by the family that came after Byron.
What's the most famous, like the image in fairy tale in the UK?
That's a good question. For me, it would be the Snow Queen that we've just seen.
Snow Queen.
Yeah, which is such a beautiful image, isn't it?
Who writes this story?
I think that was Hans Christian Andersen. I think that's what it's based on.
Very soft.
Oh yeah, they were like Victorian writers that were read here.
Was this designed for
So these are all to show the pages of the stories that have escaped.
story?
Yeah.
Which story?
Well, of those fairy tales,
Oh,
the Victorian
fairy
fairy
tale
tales, yeah.
It's for Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is part of the Christmas displays. Yes. It's all right, Leanne, come through if you want. Yeah, don't worry.
And this has a painting too. This small
Yes, yes, that's Claire Claremont.
one. Who is she?
She's a really famous figure because she's the stepsister of Mary Shelley, who
Mary
wrote Frankenstein,
Oh.
who wrote Frankenstein's monster. And she had a very brief affair with Lord Byron, and she had a daughter by him.
Fair. I
So,
understand. Yeah.
yeah, so she gave birth to a daughter, Allegra, who only lived to the age of 5.
It's a book. It's related to Byron or related to her.
No, these are all Victorian books again.
Victoria
that
books
are after Byron, yeah.
after Byron.
Well, that's the only known portrait of Claire Claremont. So that goes on loan all over the world.
So another painting here.
Yep, this is, well, how to describe it? It's Byron's grandfather, basically. And it belongs to the current Lord Byron. So the Byron family line has continued. Lord Byron the poet was the 6th, and we're now on the 13th. So this belongs to him. He was known as Foul Weather Jack because he was in the Navy, but he always hit bad weather. So they were very superstitious. That was painted by Joshua Reynolds, who was a really famous portrait painter at that time.
Okay.
He was used by all the aristocracy.
facts about his marriage?
Yes, yes. So not long before Lord Byron met Claire Claremont, he had a disastrous marriage. Disastrous.
Why was disastrous?
Well, they weren't suited really. So that's his wife. That's Lady Byron. He only really married because he needed the money. He was incredibly famous as a writer, but he wasn't claiming any money for it. He wasn't making any money from it because he felt it was beneath him as a lord. But he had lots of debt. So he felt that by getting married, he could inherit the money from that. And it didn't work. So they separated after about 8 or 9 months.
Separation.
Yeah.
With
And
child or not?
They had a daughter. They
Daughter.
had a daughter, Ada Lovelace. Well, she became known as Ada Lovelace. She was an incredible figure in her own right. She went on to become a really famous scientist and mathematician. But she didn't see Lord Byron after the age of about 6 months. In fact, all the things we have that relate to Ada are down here. So there's a letter written by her and her death certificate as well. And there's a teething finger on the left. So that's a finger that was modelled on the finger of Lady Byron. It was used when she was teething.
Oh, the finger is a little horrible.
It looks a bit gruesome, doesn't it? But it's a ceramic replica, basically.
Why create these kind of things?
It was for when Ada was a baby and her teeth were coming through. That was modelled for her to bite on to help relieve the pain.
And what's the painting behind this?
They're of her at various ages, so I think Ada's aged 5 there on the left.
5.
Yeah. And that's her as a young woman, probably early 20s there.
20.
Yeah.
And what's this one?
That's a bit later on. I think she'd just before she got married. But she was only 36 when she died. She died at the same age as Byron.
Why? What's the reason?
She died,
Illness?
yeah, I mean, by the time she died, she was an alcoholic, basically. So that was a big part of it, but it's very difficult to know. And certainly with Lord Byron, he died of a fever in Greece. It's a bit worrying because they were both 36 and I'm 36 now, but...
So young.
Yeah, I lead a bit of a different lifestyle.
Yeah. And his family has a longevity gene.
Yes, that's true, yeah. Yeah.
Waste of the gene.
Yeah, he was kind of the opposite end of that.
Yeah. And what about this?
These are images when he was really famous and he'd left England by this time, he'd sold Newstead. He'd sold Newstead to Thomas Wildman and he was living in Italy. So he lived in Ravenna for a number of years. He lived in Venice. Those were the places he were before he went to Greece to support the Greeks in their war of independence.
What's this one?
That's the Countess of Blessington, one of his many girlfriends.
How many girlfriends
Oh,
did he have?
I could not put a figure on it. But after his marriage collapsed and he left the country, he just had affairs all over, everywhere he went. Everywhere he went, usually with married women as well. He got into a lot of trouble. So, for example, when he was in Venice, if you were to look at that, that's the palace he lived in Venice. And he moved in with the Count Guiccioli, who was a very significant figure in Venice. But he had an affair with the Count's wife, Teresa.
But what's the reaction of the lady's husband?
It's really interesting because it felt like he facilitated it, because he must have known, and there was about a 30-year age difference between them.
Yeah.
So I think it was facilitated. It was expected in Italy at that time.
Okay.
It's not like Nottingham now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's just one example, really.
This is about his jacket.
Yeah, these are all things that relate to his time in Greece. And he eventually died in Greece in 1824.
Can't tell the color is green, the original color.
Yeah, it's faded quite a bit, that. And that didn't belong to him, that belonged to one of his friends. In fact, Teresa Guiccioli's brother. and they took that to Greece because the idea was that they would support the Greeks in the War of Independence that they were fighting at that time. And he loved Greece because of the classics and because he loved reading Homer and Virgil and those things.
About this
That's all part of the military uniform that they had.
uniform.
Yeah, so that was a hat that went with the jacket. And even all the time when he was doing, it was quite a difficult place and difficult atmosphere to live in, he was still writing. So this is a book that was written about him by Count Gamba. So while he was still writing, other people were writing about him. That's what happened a lot.
And
In fact, laid a blessing to
But
him.
he
Byron as well.
still lived the times.
Yes, so that was in 1820 it was written, and then published just after his death in 1825. Because Byron died the year before that. And this is the helmet actually. This helmet Byron had designed.
This one.
Yeah, so he had that designed to take with him to Greece, for him to wear in battle or while he was leading people. He never actually fought in any battle, but he died quite suddenly. He caught a fever. And that was the helmet that was on top of his coffin during the funeral.
Why his disability and to fight with people? I don't quite understand.
I mean, as I say, he tried not to let that stop anything that he did. You know, he was very self-conscious about it. He was a great athlete in spite of that, really. And I think he was always trying to prove how good an athlete he was. But to be honest, the best support he could give in the Greek War of Independence wasn't about fighting, it was about the money that he could bring and the prestige that he could bring. The fact that an English lord was supporting them was a really big deal for the Greeks. And they still celebrate his birthday, he's still revered there as a hero. Far more than in this country, I would say. So yeah, this is the room in which we tell most of his life story. So we haven't
Christmas tree.
Christmas trees everywhere. So we haven't got much time. Do you want to go and have a look in the store?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can go further up.
Yeah.
And then you could come and have a look around.
Yeah.
Because there's displays in all the bedrooms that come up here. Throughout, they're displaying paintings on them as well.
He died when Byron was out on his European tour. When Byron was returned on the 15th of November, 1808.
These are the creakiest stairs on the map. So this is part of the route that people can go through. But we'll go through this way and we'll go up the steps. So you'll have to watch yourself on the steps, but this is the way up to my office. So you'll have to step over the
好多为圣诞节准备的一些小东西，像冰雪女王的高跟鞋、
Yes, please.
松果、南瓜。
So that's where the public see, but the public don't normally come past here. So this is all offices and stores up here. So I will show you what I'm working on at the moment. So this is where we store all the collections that we don't have on display currently. So these are all the collections that I'm working on at the moment that we'll hopefully be displaying soon. And this is where we keep all the objects that we're not displaying. So we have about 6,000 objects.
6,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And about 10% of that is on display.
10%.
The rest is in stock. So that's why it looks quite crowded. Looks quite... and it looks obviously a lot different to the rest of the house. This is a painting of Byron's house in Venice. So that's it there. That's the house that he lived in. So when I mentioned the Count Wycherley, that belonged to the Count Wycherley, and Byron moved in as a tenant. And that's just been on loan at Barnsley, at the gallery, the Cooper Gallery in Barnsley. They've just had an exhibition about Venice. This painting here is of the Webb family who lived in Newstead after Lord Byron. That's them hunting in Scotland. So we've just taken this off display because we refurbished 2 of the rooms downstairs, and I need to find somewhere else to hang it. So I need to find a wall big enough.
Yeah.
But there's a few options, but we'll have it up in the wedding room.
Broken
Probably.
here.
Yeah, that happens because the frame is a Victorian one, so it was, yeah. So it was made a bit shoddily. But yeah, we'll be doing conservation work on that before it goes on display. And these were all objects that belonged to the Webb family. So the family that lived here, they were here about 40 years after Byron's death, and they started collecting things to do with him.
It's like a mirror.
Yes, yeah. And they were things that belonged to them. But you can see these images, so that's an image of Byron.
So
Yeah. Yeah, there's a copy of the portrait you saw downstairs. And there's other ones as well, so that's Byron when he was younger. And that's an estate map of Newstead. So, yeah. So the Abbey, where we are now, is there. But all around is the, this was the land that belonged to the priory when it was a religious house before Henry VIII gave it away.
Is there something special here?
Yeah, well, it's all special. I tell you what I like.
Okay.
One of my favourite things that we've just collected, there's 2 things here. This is a sock
Sock.
that belonged to Byron when he was a boy. It's in the Nottingham Lace collection that we hold here. And we just found a sock that belonged to Byron. And it's tiny, of course.
Yeah.
And
So small.
yeah. And we've just collected this. This is by Quentin Blake. Do you know Quentin Blake? Who's an
No,
artist. He illustrated the books of Roald Dahl. And I grew up reading Roald Dahl's books. And he's an amazing artist. And he painted famous attendees of Cambridge University for Cambridge's 800th anniversary. And he did a portrait of Byron. And
Which
given that to
portrait?
us.
Which portrait?
So that's what this is. So that's Lord Byron. And they've sent us a print of that to go on display. So we've only just received that, so I'm just preparing it for display. But it manages to pack in all the cliches about him. So that's his pet bear. That's him reading from his poetry, and he's just surrounded by admiring ladies and admiring boys as well. So he's managed to pack all the cliches into one image. That's what I love about that. But yeah, these are all things that I'm just preparing for display. So we're going to have a very crowded hang of all the images of Newstead we've got to try and illustrate how it's changed.
That's
so,
a picture, right? Picture.
Yeah, photograph.
Photograph.
Yeah, that is a photograph of the descendants of some of the servants that worked here for the Webb family.
Oh.
So we're going to have some sort of display about them as well. So these are all things I've been planning for a long time. We're just having the time to put them up.
Yeah. It's a golden one.
Yeah. So that's quite a famous image of him that was painted just before he left Newstead to go travelling around Europe, and it's been copied repeatedly, and it was put in covers of many of his books, and yeah, that's one of the ones that were collected by the Webb family.
What about these clothes?
Yeah, this is it doesn't belong to me. It wouldn't fit me. I tried, but yeah, this is a jacket that he bought in Albania when he first travelled across Europe. He bought about 6 of these and sent them home.
Have he wear it?
We don't know if he actually did wear it. I think he must have done. I mean, at the very least, to try it on. But it is tiny. It is
Tiny.
absolutely tiny, yeah, it's really small. And we've displayed parts of the suit that matched it downstairs in the Beckett room. So I've just brought it up here to do some work on it before I put it on display. But there's a really famous portrait of Byron in the National Portrait Gallery in London, wearing Albanian dress. It was really quite a flamboyant image. And it's one of the suits that he bought at the same time as this one. So that's why we want to have this on display, really. That's on loan to us from Byron's descendant, who still lives.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's everything that we have in store. It might be worth you having a look round now,
Yeah.
if you're happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. Is there
Thank
anything else that you might want to ask about, do you think? Or do you think that's okay?
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can to film other things by ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, shall I take you back down into the house?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sorry I can't be with you much longer.
Yeah, I know, I understand.
Yeah. But maybe when you're done, if you say to whoever's on the front desk, if you say that you're finished, then I can come down and bring you your things that we stashed.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. Thank
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for coming to see it.
you. Vanity Fair.
Yeah, that's from Vanity Fair. I need to do some research on that because that must be related to Byron in some way. I think it's from loads of cartoons were written about him when his marriage collapsed. A lot of people were writing satirical things about him, and I think that's from one of them. But I haven't investigated it yet. That's the job, really. It's constant research.
Yeah.
Constant.
You'll become specialist of Byron, I reckon.
Well, that's the hope. But there's always more. There's always more to know.
Neville,